Morning, everybody. Um, Welcome to Tech Talk. The subject might sound a bit strange: stormwater in drainage systems. Twofold. Firstly, we'll see what the requirements are and what is supposed to be happening. But at the same time, with water being a more and more scarce commodity, we'll find that it is definitely becoming a major problem, not only for the individuals who own the properties, but also at the same time for the local authorities and the people involved with the infrastructure. Let's start with the biggest hammer. National Building Regulations Part P3 speaks to the control of objectionable discharge. So objectionable in this case being no person shall cause or permit sewage discharge from any fixture to enter a stormwater drain, stormwater sewer, or excavated or constructed watercourse, river, stream, or natural watercourse, whether ordinarily dry or otherwise, or street. Originally, let me just get this out here. Originally, this looked like a funny reference until you actually literally see the sewage running down the street. So the point I'm trying to get at to this morning is point 2 out of that subsection. No person shall cause or permit stormwater to enter any drainage installation on any site. It's not residential, it's not business, it's not because my area is flat and we can't fit things in. It is any drainage installation on any site. Subregulation 3 says the local authority may, by notice in writing, order the owner of that site to execute at his own cost any precautionary measures required by the local authority to prevent such an entry contemplated in 1 or 2. In other words, sewage and stormwater discharging into one another. So either of those two options, the local authority by notice in writing, normally you'll find this happens at plan approval stage, or when development starts, you might find that these guys come to site and actually require you to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that none of that contamination occurs. Point 4, just a quick touch on, we're not going to deal too much around that. That is a no person shall, without the written permission of the local authority, discharge or cause the discharge of any water from a pool, fountain, or reservoir directly or indirectly onto a public street, public place, or any site other than the site upon which that pool, fountain, or reservoir is situated. From my experience within the local authority, basically what happens is that chlorine ends up weakening and ultimately discoloring and disintegrating the tar or part of the material that is the road surfacing. So other than being a nuisance and obviously flooding and causing wet patches or sagging patches, it is definitely detrimental to the actual surface itself. And then, like with most regulations, we end up saying, the National Building Regulation ends up saying that any person who contravenes or permits the contravention of any requirement of this regulation or fails to comply with a notice served in subregulation 3, in other words, you either dump or you discharge and you get served a notice as per the local authority, and you ignore that notice served, shall be guilty of an offense. And no, guys, you can't ask me to send you the money after the presentation. You'd have to find your own. Then we jump from the national regulations to the local authority bylaws, which forms part and parcel of what your local municipality enforces. I've just touched on 3 or 4 here. So in Ekurhuleni, you'll find that Section 39 says no part of a drainage installation shall at any time, not during flood rains and what have you not at any time be such or capable of being rendered such that water from any other source, not sewage, can enter the installation without the intervention of human action. No person shall discharge or cause to be discharged any substance other than sewage into a drainage installation. And then if the last one is what today is all about. No pipe, channel, or other device used for capable of being used to conduct rainwater from a roof or other surface shall be permitted to discharge into that drainage installation. All of these bylaws that we're looking at, or that we are going to look at, basically say exactly the same thing. First one says no sewage into the stormwater. The second portion says any substance, including stormwater, may be discharged into a drainage installation. And once again, they've even covered the discharge or the backwash from your pool. City of Joburg, no drainage may be constructed, designed, or allowed to be capable of allowing water from any source, not being soil or wastewater, to be entering that drainage installation. So it's not a specific thing to certain metros. You'll find that the larger majority of these bylaws all speak to the same thing. Sunduzi, you'll see same thing. A water from any source not being soil, water, or wastewater, and you're not allowed to enter that into the drainage system. So as we just start scrolling through these things, it's not simply because it's a rule and no one does it, or we're looking at something alternate. Here you can see 1, 2, 3 downpipes. So for the guys amongst us that have done these gutters, you can imagine the distance that these downpipes have to travel if you have 3 downpipes discharging in one place. But might be flat, might be whatever reason. Here we've got 3. End up having a nice, here you can see the roof, nice enclosed courtyard with a gully in there, another downpipe discharging in there. Even scarier when you walk into a sectional title or multiple unit complex or interconnected complex, and you see that their whole paving system is designed around gully traps being all over and then connected to the sewer. Another example, and here's one from our friends in the aluminium. You can see even the guys doing the aluminium guttering have found that instead of running these things around, maybe by or under instruction from the owner, you can see, so whatever ends up in that long seamless gutter going just about all around the house ends up in the gully. So just to put this in perspective before we get to the infrastructure bit, I'd like to just quickly took the slide from my backflow prevention presentation. If you imagine a townhouse complex or a duplex units all stuck together, if you take a 10 meter by 10 meter by 10 millimeter surface area, and there's 10 millimeters worth of rain, and I've been at the airport at Oliver Tambo with a rainstorm coming over the Gauteng area. I don't think you guys are anything scared. We pray for 10 millimeters worth of rain. I think you guys are used to it. But the maths are simple. In a 10 by 10 little courtyard or a roof area that is 10 by 10 with 10 millimeters worth of rain, we are looking at 1,000 liters of water straight up. So if we look at the average sectional title units or sectional title complexes or homeowners association enclosed or areas or developments, you could have 20 in there, you could have 50 in there, you could have 100 units in there. So if you take 50 units times that 10 meter courtyard area, all of a sudden there's 50,000 liters more that needs to go somewhere. And unless it is properly piped or constructed as per SANS 10400 Part R, then you'll find that that is definitely a problem. So 10 by 10, you'll tell me that it is a rather small area. If we had to take 50 by 50 area, which is a very small parking area, considering that there's a 3.5 meter width on a parking bay, and it is 7 or 6 meters in length or 5 meters in length if you want to really get to that smaller sizes. But 50 by 50 would then give you a sum total of 25,000 liters of water per 50 by 50 opening, with the rain pouring down like that. So all of a sudden we have 25,000 liters of water concentrated in one area. So what happens then? From that drainage system or from that internal drainage system, that happens. It ends up in the municipal infrastructure at very flat gradients on larger diameter pipes. You'll normally find that you'll see there's no sewage or there's no solids or human waste in this area here. That's a nice clean stormwater bubble. And then once all the damage is done, this is what happens. That if there's no proper drainage or there's no stormwater in that specific section, that is what that whole setup looks like. So if I show you that from that bubbling manhole, it ends up in the municipal treatment works. And I'm going to ask you to please pay attention to this area here where you have these galvanized balustrading or these this frame section here. So you can see that whole area has been flooded with that additional stormwater coming into the system. And you can look at the color of this water. It is clean. There's no solids. There's not even a bit of paper or anything floating. And this is clean rainwater. So that flooded area I showed you on the previous picture, that framework or that balustrading is in this specific area. So you see this channel that's about to overflow. That somewhere under that mess that's in the first picture of the treatment works, this water line or this water is supposed to be flowing in an open channel, probably half to a third of the current depth of where that water is now. So if we look at the possible scenarios with this flooding, here's a perfect picture of what can happen. You have enough sand, especially the guys along the coast. We have sand blowing all over the beachfront. We do have work, and then you end up with pipes that are either going to not be able to carry the load or actually get damaged with the additional water coming into that system. Now, having started from the roof or having started from that private property, then into the municipal sewer reticulation, and then all the way down into the wastewater treatment facilities, which you should have a couple depending on the size of your metro. But now the problem comes in that once you've gotten to this damage or once you've seen this happen, first thing that happens is that whole treatment works like a septic tank. You have got microorganisms in there. You've got a system going in there that helps dissolve the solids, and it gets it into a position or into a condition that would be able to be treated, and you'd be able to work your way through this whole process and then either discharge it or recycle it or use it on sports fields and what have you not. But once that system breaks down or once that system gets damaged or needs to be shut down for either bypass pumping or cleaning up of the system or just emergency repairs to get everybody back into working condition. The saddest bit is that this whole process goes back full circle to the house, or not always the house, sorry, let me rephrase. Most of the time, the innocent people on that system are the ones that are being punished as per this picture. And like I said previously, you'll see there's no paper, there's nothing there. That is rainwater discharging from a sewer that can't manage. Okay, these installations are dodged. They're supposed to have a gully outside, etc., etc. But the fact is that full circle from the house where you had that little courtyard or you had that little area collecting rainwater because it's got nowhere else to go, or we're not sure what is going to happen where. So let's just drop it into the drainage. No one will know. Full circle back. This is the net result, and this is what the people end up suffering with. So it does not look like much because it's not something we deal with often enough, thankfully. But somewhere between having to save water and having to make sure that the ailing systems in our country with the local authorities don't get taken apart altogether, I think we just need to have a quick look at the slide here. Familiarize yourself with regulations and local bylaws. In other words, those 3 or 4 examples I took now, they are about 80-90% copies of the original draft water bylaw that was published years and years ago. So you'll find that your local bylaws will most definitely, even if it's under the effluent discharge tables where it says you can't put oil and all the rest of that in there, it will definitely mention stormwater. So somewhere between the regulations and the local bylaws. If you familiarize yourself with where you can find that information or how you can reference it, or once you've decided to get involved with this whole process, you can then use that reference section, whatever A, B, C, would just do or let's put it this way, you need to be able to stand up in front of a client and say, this is wrong. And if the guy starts arguing and it cost him a lot of money, etc., you need to be able to then explain to them. So observe and follow up. In other words, if you do see there's a downpipe into a gully, or there's several downpipes around the house into several gullies, plumbers, by nature, what we do is we go to people's houses, or we go to different people's houses in different areas, and we end up working around the water pipes, the drainage pipes, etc. So you'll be able to pick it up far more easy than any building control officer or any other official. So when you're there, you observe, you can then explain the legal implications to that owner of the property. You feel free. The National Building Regulations is exactly that. It's a national document that sets the rules and regulations and standards, and your municipal bylaws being the closer to home enforced document. So if you do speak to your clients, or you do speak to that owner or that tenant saying, look, this is where we are, we can't be doing this, then you can take it a step further. You can then approach that same owner and say, well, look, let's investigate alternatives. Let's look at possibly putting up a stand with a rainwater harvesting tank, and you could actually use that rainwater to benefit your property, or to benefit your piece of land, garden, whatever area. Yeah. Then if you consider the non-job creation bit here, and we just go back to saving the infrastructure, and I get this argument regularly, and we get told regularly, you know what, it's council, they're not maintaining this, they're not maintaining that. As plumbers, if there's no infrastructure, and please, you can share this with anyone, or you can mention it to anyone in any which way, if there's no water supply and there's no drainage in your town, you are basically unemployed. We need to help save the infrastructure in the towns, cities, metros, wherever we work. We need to make sure that those systems keep running so that we can keep operating. And then the second last thing is save the environment. Every time you see a drain, I've even seen these conservancy tanks, what do you call them, these like honeysuckers, end up going to farms or small holdings, emptying those tanks and then coming back into town and dumping it into a manhole. Take a snapshot of that specific truck dumping with the registration number showing, hand it over to your local authority. Somewhere in that stormwater system, or somewhere in that town's infrastructure, we're going to end up with either sewage in the stormwater, or vice versa. We're going to end up flooding things that don't belong there. So ultimately, somewhere along the line, it's down to the plumber, as usual, or like in most cases, to do the right thing. It's in our own interest to look after this whole process, or to end up looking at who's doing what, who's affecting our industry, who's making our life difficult. And thank you for the guys in attendance. I hope it was informative, and I hope somewhere along the line that you do end up meeting up with some of these illegal discharges and actually making good work of it.